What is going on, everybody? My name is Kincaid, and I am thrilled to bring you episode 9 of this CR250 build. In today's episode, I will be packaging up all of these suspension components, driving to DSC Motorsports in Florence, Montana, where Daniel Schmidt, who is a professional suspension tech, will be reassembling the suspension, doing some custom valve work to make this far better than it was from the factory in 2002. Keep in mind, one lucky winner will be taking this bike home, so if you'd like to get yourself entered, that link is in the description. Morning. How are you? Good. Can I get a breakfast burrito with salsa and sour cream and a small caramel mocha?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You have a good one too. I just stopped at a green light, bro. After a gorgeous 3.5-hour morning drive to Florence, I arrived at DSC Motorsports. Daniel wasted no time inspecting all of the components to make sure we had everything we need and then got to work. While I have worked on plenty of suspension over the years, it was truly incredible to watch a master at work. All of the steps where I'd be perusing YouTube or reading a service manual have simply become second nature to Daniel. Before I knew it, the inner cartridges were disassembled and all of a sudden he's going at the cartridge with a drill bit. Here's why.
So the threads are cleaned on this. They smash a little divot where it can't ever come apart.
So essentially, as Daniel described it to me, these cartridges are intended to be non-serviceable, meaning when the seals go bad, you're supposed to replace the entire cartridge. Well, this genius workaround allowed Daniel to access and replace those seals without any issues whatsoever. In order to access those shim stacks for the revalve, the top of the rod and nut needed to be ground down just a little bit to remove that peening so the nuts could be removed without damaging threads. The damper rods had slight wear that Daniel was able to buff out using some Scotch-Brite, and here's what he had to say about that process.
Now, normally, I would just tell a guy, hey, man, you need a new cartridge rod? $100, you can get one. They don't make these anymore.
Gotcha.
Can't get them.
So he buffed those rods to a point where he felt confident in running them, and luckily the wear was at a point in the stroke where the bike does not spend that much time. Now, onto the revalve. This is where Daniel's expertise was particularly fun to watch. Typically, when it comes to shim stacks, I put a zip tie through them during removal, make sure they never come out of order, and reinstall in the exact same orientation. Daniel updated the shim stacks, and I asked him what benefits we could expect from this revalving. He said he'd previously done a very similar revalve in a 2001 CR250 he built, and he said the initial stroke becomes significantly more smooth, and the bottoming resistance improves greatly, allowing you to send it as far as you want. With the inner cartridges reassembled, I finally got my first look at these stunning DLC-coated fork stanchions and the shock shaft. This blue turned out incredible, and it was time to reassemble the lower legs and get some new seals and bushings installed. First, the fork lugs needed to be reinstalled, which involves a hefty amount of red thread locker before threading those lugs on, tightening the stanchion down, and replacing the set screw. Huge thanks to Prime MX for providing these Pro X seals as well as the bushing kit. You can order all of these parts directly from the Prime MX website. Cameron Niemela, the owner and creator of Prime, is currently battling cancer for the 3rd time, so purchasing from his website is a great way to support him during this difficult time. Daniel installed the upper tubes onto the stanchions with these all-new bushings and seals with a level of efficiency I can only hope to one day achieve. It's so cool learning new techniques and ways to do things that I may have not thought about otherwise. The black uppers with the blue lowers look every bit as good as I hoped they would. Now it was time to add oil to the inner cartridge and then bleed all of the air out. This was done by pushing the damper rod up and down and then letting the cartridge sit for a while to let any remaining bubbles rise to the top. I asked Daniel how you know when it's fully bled, and he said the suction sound that you hear at first will completely go away, and then here he demonstrates the smooth motion of a fully bled damper assembly.
You see how when I only have to hold it, it holds pressure? That's what you want. A little bit at the very end. Like you see how there's a little bit, it needs to go a little more.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, especially with a brand new set of seals, because they're squeezing that shaft really, really tight.
We like seals tight to the shaft. We were on the home stretch for the forks and just needed to reinstall the springs and inner cartridge. While this went smoothly for one of 2 forks, as you guys know, nothing ever goes fully to plan. On the second fork, something had happened to the threads of the rebound adjuster. I'm not sure if I damaged those threads during disassembly or what, but regardless, the threads were shot and we in turn damaged the threads of the bottoming cone inside the stanchion. This meant the fork had to come back apart, and Daniel had a spare set of 47mm Showa forks he was kind enough to steal parts from for the sake of this CR250 build. While this would have been a couple-hour job for me, Daniel had a donor fork completely apart in all of 5 minutes and the issue almost resolved. As it turns out, the inner diameter of the damper rod and the outer diameter of the rebound adjuster was different on the two sets of forks. Drilling by hand, Daniel did such a beautiful job boring out the damper rod that you'd have no idea it wasn't done in a professional machine shop. So, if you're the winner of this CR250 and you ever wonder why the rebound adjusters are slightly different, now you know. Living 3.5 hours away, I was really nervous we were going to have to find some parts to order and postpone the completion of the suspension, so huge thanks to Daniel for using his knowledge and expertise to engineer a reliable solution to our hiccup. With the forks complete, it was time to move on to the shock. The needle was installed back into that beautiful blue shock shaft before reinstalling the rebound adjuster and installing the shaft back onto the clevis. The piston band was worn out, and here were Daniel's tips on installing a new one.
If you ever cut these off, you gotta be really, really careful not to go. So you don't want to go all the way through them and scratch the metal. So if you just score them, you get a screwdriver in there and then they'll pop.
Kind of got a beautiful ring to it.
I know, I love it.
With the shock now revalved as well, it was time to reassemble. Prime MX also supplied the shock seal for this project, which again is a Pro X shock seal. The link to Prime can be found in the description below. Now, I've traditionally bled shocks through the bladder side, but it's often hard to do a perfect job that way. Daniel demonstrates how to do it through the compression adjuster, which I now believe is a more effective and a cleaner way to do the job. Instead of pouring oil into the bladder side, you actually install the bladder first and then pour all of the oil via the hole for the compression adjuster. From there, here is his technique for bleeding all of the air out effectively.
If that seal head slips and pushes up, this will spray oil everywhere. So I just stuck a little screwdriver in there and hold the dust seal. On the way back, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it doesn't really get messy until...
It's still gonna have to overflow out of here, right?
Until you put the adjuster in, because then you gotta make it overflow.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of tip it upside down to where that hole is on a higher spot to make sure you have all the air out of the bladder. And then you can run it back up here, and our compression adjuster can go back in.
And boom, just like that, all of the air was bled perfectly out of the shock, and this thing is ready for some big sends. Daniel reinstalled the compression adjuster before charging the shock bladder with nitrogen at 150 psi. Before installing the shock spring, here's a demonstration to show that the rebound adjuster is working properly.
So all the way in, and the shock is almost completely locked out. The more you back it out, the faster the shaft speed.
So as we wrap up this shock build, I want to give another enormous thank you to Daniel for letting me film this entire process, all while explaining so many fine details. If you are in need of a quality suspension tuner or engine work, I would highly recommend reaching out to Daniel with DSC Motorsports. Links to get in touch with him can be found in the description of this video. Now here's your first look at these stunning forks and this gorgeous shock side by side. This stuff looks so killer. Cannot wait to bolt this on the bike, thank you. And if you do happen to be local, here is the stunning view you can expect to see as you leave Daniel's shop. This CR250 suspension is freaking insane, guys. I just started my drive home and I'm just in freaking disbelief at how good this stuff looks. This bike's gonna be something else. I brought my 350 so I could stop at Pipestone on the way home because I figured we'd be done by like 2 in the afternoon. It's 5:15 p.m. and I just started driving, so I'm gonna definitely be passing Pipestone in the dark, but so worth it. The suspension looks insane. and it's gonna look insane on the bike. Hyped for myself and hyped for you guys. Someone's gonna win this freaking bike. I say it every build, and I mean it every build. This is gonna be the best one yet. Go get yourself entered to win. I may be totally freaking exhausted, but damn these Montana sunsets, woo! Thanks for watching, guys. Here's a quick sneak peek of the next CR250 build episode, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow along. And if you'd like to get entered to win this bike, that link is also in the description below. See you guys soon with the next episode.